Hello to all and welcome. This is Terry Roberts with DMAI, and so excited that you have joined us today. This session was a presentation that Danielle and Edie delivered during our DMAI annual convention this past year in August. And so there were so many of you who could not be there. We thought that it would be nice to repeat this topic, and it's a topic that we always hear about and is relevant, how to reach that quote-unquote invisible customer. So both Edie and Danielle have spent some time updating the presentation and adding onto it as well. So look forward to really hearing what they both have to say. So we've got a lot to cover. So I will jump in and start with introductions. So first, let me introduce to you our very good friend of the DMO industry, Danielle Boyles, who's Vice President with Helms Briscoe. Hello, Danielle.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. And Danielle is joined, and we are so pleased to welcome Edie DePhillips. Edie is the VP Event Project Management Team Manager for Wells Fargo Home Mortgage and a good customer as well of Helms Briscoe. So Danielle and Edie, thank you. I am going to sit back myself, Danielle and Edie, enjoy and listen and learn. And I want to let all of our audience members know that we will take some questions at the end of Danielle and Edie's talk today. So if a question comes up for you, feel free to go ahead and put it into the question box on your GoToMeeting dashboard, and I'll kind of monitor questions and keep abreast of them and group them together as Danielle and Edie are speaking, and then we'll take them at the end. So Danielle, over to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Terry. And thank you, everyone, for joining Edie and I this morning or this afternoon, wherever you may be located. Today, we're going to talk about how you, as a DMO sales force, can still reach what we're calling the invisible customer, an end user who uses third parties and electronic RFP platforms to source their programs. How do you get beyond these channels, which many perceive as obstacles, and still convert the business? Let's keep in mind that not all end users want to be invisible. Some very much like to be in the forefront and want to be your main point of contact, and they want to work directly with you. I would say that they follow a more traditional sales relationship model. But for the sake of today's conversation, we're talking about the invisible customer. So let's talk a little bit more about these invisible customers. Who are they, and what do they feel? Why do they feel it's necessary to outsource for their meeting selection needs? Something that you may find interesting about these folks is that only 22% of Helms Briscoe's clients, or invisible customers, actually work in a meeting planning or travel department. The rest may work in sales and marketing, training, HR, or any other area of the business. They may or may not have a lot of meetings experience. Planning meetings might, in fact, be a very small part of their overall job description. They could be a director of procurement or VP of a business unit, or they could be an administrative assistant. Edie, would you consider yourself an invisible customer, and if so, why?
Yes, I am, and not because I necessarily want to be completely invisible to all the great people in this industry. It's just purely a necessity. We manage within just Wells Fargo Home Mortgage, and this is just one of many companies in Wells Fargo. My team alone last year touched 1,700 events. And I use the word touch because we manage what I call soup to nuts. So we may be doing something as small as 5 to 6 people or as large as 500 to 600 people, all requiring different resources. But they all require resources. And so for me, the advantage of partnering with Helms Briscoe and the third parties in the industry allows me to have an extension on my team that, in essence, I'm not funding from an FTE perspective. I also gain huge knowledge of the industry. I gain a scope greater than what I could ever do picking up a phone and dialing or surfing. When I work with Helms Briscoe, they are the experts. They have so many resources in front of them. They have so many relationships that really I use that to my benefit selfishly and soak every piece of information they can give and services they provide. And also in the world of ERFPs these days, as you well know, they have their pros and cons. But no matter what, they have to be managed, and that in itself requires resource knowledge and expertise, and another element that's becoming extremely important in the services that Helms Briscoe provides to me.
Great, thank you. And you know, Edie, since our audience today is the DMO community or CVB community, what role do you see DMOs playing in the success of your overall goals?
So when I work with Danielle or actually David, who is my HB contact, I look for them to be the experts. So I may know I'm going to Cincinnati, I'm going to Chicago. I rely on them to let me know what's going on in that market, to say, hey, it's a citywide, or they're wide open, there's great opportunities, or do you know that the main street where all the hotels and the convention center is located is torn up for city construction. That information is very critical in decision making and our experience, but I expect David to do that legwork and get that information from you. While I would love to have the time to interact and learn about the great offerings that you represent from your communities, I don't have the luxury of time. So I really need him to connect with you, get the information, understand my business, what my goal is, why I'm coming there, what the experience is supposed to be, boil the information down and give me the critical information I need for my program to be successful. So the more you can give them the current updates of what's going on, why to come to a community, the better opportunity I have to experience your communities. In addition, I may throw out 3 or 4 markets, and because David or Danielle may have just had a conversation with one of you that there's an opening or something new just popped open in the community, flights all of a sudden are low, or whatever it might be, a new awareness, they will pitch that to me as well. So it may not be on my radar in my initial request, but because of what you've shared with them, I'm willing to look at it and throw it in the mix as well. Hope that answers your question there, Danielle.
Yeah, no, great. Thank you so much. Yeah, you know, it's wonderful how we all kind of work together, especially knowing what your restraints are just in terms of timing and being able to pull it all together. So what I thought, Edie, is that we provide a little context here, perhaps a little background. You know, some of the brands everyone might be familiar with on the screen, these organizations are service-based. They really have no product to sell, but are the fastest growing organizations out there because with one click of a button, they make the end user's life easier. And of course, who doesn't want that? And if you add in the third-party site selection model to this group, as we heard from Edie, providing a service to customers to make their lives easier, we can now see why the third-party way of buying meetings is significantly growing year over year. And because of these organizations and the technology they use, the way we conduct business overall has changed. Engagement is different today. Remember these business meetings? Hopefully some of you are old like me and remember actually these business meetings, meeting customers over lunch and martinis, and they seem to go on for hours and hours. Well, there's just no time for this now. Life is moving too fast for everybody. And just because the channels in the sales process have changed, the ability to still manage that sales conversation in this new world is key. So when invisible customers do peek out from behind the curtain and become visible, make sure you're ready. Leading up to that point, get ready by being helpful and building relationships with whoever the invisible customer is putting in front of you. Likely their advocate. And one of the primary roles of the third-party associate is to be an advocate for their customers. At HB, we want our sales partners to have a relationship with the client, keeping in mind, however, that we're the point person, but we still want our partners to have that relationship. We are the advocate, and in most cases, the influencer as well. Think of a lobbyist in DC. They are powerful influencers, but not necessarily the decision makers. The best way to win over a decision maker is to understand and embrace the role of the influencer. Let's think now about an important board vote. If you needed to get a certain vote or decision to go your way, you are going to identify the board members who will help sway that decision. They're the influencers. And you're going to cozy up to them and do whatever you need to ensure that that decision goes the way you want it. Edie, you kind of alluded to this earlier, but would you say that your decision to book a meeting in a certain destination is sometimes swayed by the suggestion of your third-party planner, your advocate?
Absolutely. And you know, swayed has a unique tone to in itself, but I really see Helms Briscoe, and whether it's David or Benedict or Jim or Christy or whoever I might be working with, as a partner. I expect them to know my business. I expect them to understand the demands. I expect them to give me their expertise. So I really see it as valuable information that they're coming to the table and helping me make a decision that's going to be best for Wells Fargo and whoever we might be serving. So whether that's an internal customer or an external client. But when I say swayed, it's really a conversation because it's the value of the information they bring to me, their perspective on it. As we all know, we can sometimes get in our own box and can't quite see the light, but when you have an external or a third party or another set of eyes and different inputs to provide, you may make different and better decisions with taking that information into account. So they really are a partner. They're an extension of my team, and they provide that valuable information to help me make a better decision.
Great, thank you. So I think, Edie, I'm going to sort of switch a little bit here and talk about some market conditions. And, you know, we're all working through the present-day market economic conditions, not to mention, my goodness, all of the hotel mergers and acquisitions of late, which have everyone's head spinning. This upswing cycle is great for the hospitality industry overall, and certainly for many of your local economies who enjoy the group meeting spend coming to your destination. However, it is a challenging time for the folks who need to place those programs, those meetings. Rates and occupancy levels are high and have been building every year for the past 4 or 5 years. Compression makes it difficult to even find availability, and then you're often dealing with second or third option pressures from the hotel. Space is yanked away because someone else's CEO was able to sign the contract faster than your CEO, and there's very little flexibility on contract clauses or concessions. And believe me, I mean, I used to be on the hotel side, and I totally get it, right? Everyone has to make hay while the sun is shining. But needless to say, these market conditions are stressful for planners. And I know for a fact that at Helms Briscoe, we've definitely seen new customers because of how frustrated some of these planners have become. Every year, we conduct a survey and ask our associates if their clients are expecting to make changes to their overall meeting spend, to their budgets. In 2015, 46% of surveyed associates indicated that their clients were not making any changes to their spend compared to the year prior, while 32% said that their clients knew they had to budget for a slight increases. given, of course, the market conditions. When we asked the question to them again this year, even after all of the education about market conditions that we've provided, you can see that there's been virtually little change. In fact, even more, 50% say that they are not making any changes to their spend. So you can definitely see a disconnect here between customer and supplier. Edie, what are you anticipating this year and probably into the next couple of years in terms of budget spend compared to previous years?
Flat. And so, you know, right, you know, the bar gets raised because, you know, I'm going to toot my team's own horn here because they're fabulous and do a great job at delivering. And so do more with less. I want what you did, but more, but better and different. And then also, we're seeing so many unique needs of the attendees, from food allergies and demands to different travel and accessibility to just really, I want to be on the lower floor, I can't be by an elevator. I mean, all these different demands that as a company we need to also take care of. And so when you layer in a flat budget, do more with less, higher expectations, more unique demands, what you have outlined here, Danielle, is spot on. That really leveraging the knowledge of all of you on the phone, of Danielle and her HB associates, is so critical, because we are going to be looking for every opportunity to pull a different lever, to give more when we didn't think we could, and find different avenues and different experiences to move our business forward in the meeting and event space.
And, you know, Edie, you alluded to other demands or higher demands that you're seeing. And aside from these market conditions and these higher demands, what other pressures are you perhaps facing internally? Are there any other trends which your organization is grappling with?
I think our biggest struggle is we went through this phase where no meetings, face-to-face, save budgets, virtual is the way. You know, that's right when FaceTime was rolling out, and you know, look at how we're all connecting right now. But yet we still know the value of face-to-face, and whether that is customer, client, or internally. So there is a huge demand to figure out how to balance that virtual versus face-to-face. Also, we have large facilities, Wells Fargo, across the company, across the country, as many of you may know, where we probably are in your markets. The demand for internal meeting space is incredibly high, and it is a bugger to try to get space. So then it pushes folks out of our buildings, and that's where you get the non-planner. Danielle mentioned that many of her clients are non-planners. And when they move into that non-planner space, you suddenly have what I like to affectionately call your Susie admin picking up the phone and calling across the street, or maybe they're in a different market and calling that one hotel that is across the street. And those demands, because suddenly you have the non-experienced, not intentionally doing anything wrong, but just because they're not in the industry, doesn't know what to look for, how to negotiate. So those are large demands on us, where we're actually then having to engage and do more cleanup work than getting in front of it. So I think of it in relationship with you all, that if I had a situation which maybe wasn't as favorable, but I could reach out to Danielle to say, hey Danielle, are you familiar with this property in this market? She could potentially reach out to you all and maybe help us work through some challenging situations if it comes up. On the flip side too, great experience, I'd love to send that off to her and share that with you also. You have you know, another nugget in your back pocket there to share. I also think turn times are incredibly challenging. We, as an organization, are pulling all of our meeting planners together effective next month, so about 100 of us will all be under one team for the first time in Wells Fargo history. We've got great opportunity, but for some of us, we have extremely tight turn times. On average, for the mortgage team, we do programs within a 6-week turn time. And as you all know, a tight meeting space is, for us to come into a market and bring anywhere from as small as 25 to as big as, say, 150 in 6 weeks, it's a challenge. So working with a Helms Briscoe who can reach out and understand the markets that are available to us is extremely important. And then I also think, and valuable, the knowledge of, hey, this is what I have, this is what I need to happen, here's where my people are, and that providing the information back. I think I sound like a broken record, but that is what is really, really important when I'm looking at all the different challenges of cost, of demand for space, of the nuances of the customer, the attendee, and not to mention flights and everything else that goes along with the travel component. Those demands rope it all in and affect everything upstream, downstream as well.
Well, and Edie, perfect, because I think you summed up then my next question to you, which was about, how has using the third party, your advocate, if you will, and their DMO relationships helped you to overcome these trends or these challenges that your organization's grappling. But I think you kind of answered that, and I think that's perfect. That gives us a really good insight.
Yeah, and I also would encourage everyone to don't judge what you think might be a minute communication. So if something, what you may not think is maybe splashy, has happened in your market, always share that information. You never know what that one piece of information may be really important to one person and maybe not so much to another person, but it's the communication of the information that is critical. And what I would love is what I would call one-sheeters, and you probably are going, wait, I got one right here on my desk. But to be able to provide that to a Helms Briscoe, and it's a quick fact sheet, one page that gives me the highlights, things I need to know, things to be aware of, maybe ideas. Hey, we have, for example, Denver. I just learned the new train just opened up from the airport to downtown area. Being able to say, hey, did you know that? And it's a 36-minute commute and it costs $9. Larger communities where there's a metro or a subway or the L or buses, that type of information you may take for granted are really important. Also, things like how green are we? Are there new hot restaurants, new workout facilities? Oh my gosh, if I have to find a workout facility next to a hotel that's not the size of a cracker box, that type of information is critical. And to know that, hey, this lifetime, for $10 you can walk in and work out for the day, and maybe work with them to get some specials that potentially would help bring my group your way because of a workout, or because they have a new great area with a wine bar, or they have a local farm-to-market area that does a farmer's market from 4 to 7, and maybe your meeting can conclude and you can go walk around and enjoy that. So never underestimate or judge what might trip someone's trigger to come your way.
Great, and I think that's wonderful advice, and part of the reason why we created our Destination Partnership Program a number of years ago, so that we could provide a platform for our DMO partners to be able to share that information with all the associates in a really approachable and meaningful way, so that they can then in turn share all that information with you. So right on. Great advice. Thank you. So let's turn our attention now to the invisible customer's buying process, and the key question of how DMO sales teams can still impact that process even when the customer decides at this point to not be visible. So again, pulling from the associate survey that we conducted, we wanted to know, when booking a meeting, if quality and price were relatively equal, what other variables impact the client's decision? We discovered that the two key components in the buying process are associate recommendations and the client's own internal decision factors. The top three factors which may influence an associate's recommendations to their client were a customized proposal that answers all of the client's questions and demonstrates unique value to this particular client, and HB Insight. HB Insight, for those of you who aren't familiar, is our proprietary tool. It's actually I kind of think of it as a blog system where HB associates and clients can rate and review a particular hotel or DMO. Well, 70% of associates said that they are extremely likely to recommend a hotel or destination if there is a positive review in HB Insight. And then established rapport. An established rapport matters. There needs to be trust and confidence in the partner at that DMO or hotel. Building relationships matter. We also wanted to know what ultimately influences the client's final selection to book that destination or hotel. Number one, value is consistently rated as more important than just price in the survey results. Concessions are still very important. Again, insight reviews are important to the client in the final buying decision as well, which follows the buying patterns that we see in other industries today. I mean, how many of you would book a vacation and not really take a look at TripAdvisor, or perhaps get some renovations on the house and not maybe take a look at Angie's List? So there, you can see this in other trends in other industries as well. And then number three, a custom proposal. A highly customized proposal will differentiate the winning hotel or destination. Edie, would you agree with these findings?
Absolutely. So I love that HB Insight. While I don't have access to it, when I'm torn or I'm getting conflicting information, I immediately go to David and say, hey, go look this up. Go see what you find, and then if there aren't any comments in there, he will cast a net out to say, hey, anybody know anything about this? And that information to me is so much more valuable than the TripAdvisors and those, because those ones I'm always a little sketchy on because they can be managed and manipulated behind the scenes. So I'm a little wary of those, but when I know it's coming from an HB associate who has had an experience and a relationship, that is extremely important to me. And the concessions is a really, really good point. So many people in the industry, and you all probably know this very, very well, they look at one thing, they look at rate. And that can be extremely misleading into the overall cost of your program or the overall value. And those value adds or additional things that we can bring to a program at a low or reduced cost is huge. And a perfect example was what I was talking with the gym, the hotel gyms. I've got a group that are morning exercisers, period. And I always have to find out what is the gym facilities. And a cracker box with 2 treadmills and weights in the corner isn't going to work. So to know that there is that value down the street, and I already know I don't have to pick up the phone and ask the cost or anything, huge, huge wins for me in that space. And then that they recognize who I am, what my needs are, and then what my end result is, and they tailor that proposal to meet those needs is also another win in the big old checkbox in the win category.
Excellent. Thank you, Edie. So let's revisit the impact technology is having on our industry. So a couple of little samples here. Amazon, interestingly, was established in 1994 and is now the world's largest retailer. Google did not exist 20 years ago and now processes more than 3 billion searches per day. And when was the last time you took a taxi, not Uber, but a taxi in San Francisco? You know, our industry is also changing rapidly. The way people make decisions and book their travel and how planners book their meetings is changing. Announced just last week, a huge merger among meeting technology companies. So who knows what that's all going to lead to, but definitely exciting times ahead. You know, electronic RFPs, love them or hate them, they are not going away anytime soon. Introduced in 1997, these tools are used by planners to source more than 1 million meetings each year. In fact, a white paper was released last summer by the GBTA Meetings Committee and CIC. The white paper is called Improving eRFP Efficiency and Effectiveness for the Meetings Industry. In this study, what we'll call visible customers and third-party planners, hoteliers, DMOs, and meeting technology companies were all interviewed. I'd like to share a little bit about their findings. One of the biggest questions addressed in the white paper has to do with the volume-based shopping capability that this technology now provides. And is that creating an unmanageable workload for those on the receiving end? I know for a fact that we are seeing more and more new customers come to us because they can't even get a response on their RFPs. So, yes, customers are frustrated. The growth rate of eRFPs has far outpaced the single-digit growth rate in meeting bookings these past few years. Sales forces at hotels and DMOs are overwhelmed just trying to keep up. So, of course, you guys are frustrated too. So I guess it's fair to say that when it comes to electronic RFPs, high volume equals heightened dissatisfaction. The white paper did offer the following emerging solutions. Education. Educating the customer on the impact being bombarded with eRFPs has on the process and the positive impact of doing research before sending out an RFP, along with the positive impact of providing as much information as possible on that RFP in the first place. So education of the customer was seen definitely as a solution. Processes. The thought is to use standardized templates and add more details such as the average rates to a destination's profile. Limits. A suggestion was tossed around that if there was simply a cap put on the number of venues allowed to be sourced per RFP, that might help. I don't actually know, and I'm not a big believer in that solution, but there may be a place for it. Technology solutions. Improving on the existing platforms to make it more user-friendly. So, for example, more pre-populated fields or things like that. And then finally, alternate technology models using two-staged eRFPs so that users can view availability and pricing prior to issuing an RFP. So, given all of that, what does that mean for you as a DMO sales force? I actually think there's a great opportunity here for the DMO community. You, more than any other piece of the puzzle, can pull all of this together for all stakeholders by focusing on the following three things: building relationships, reducing duplication in eRFPs, and creating a best practice for the process. Your relevance through relationships. The participants of the white paper found that existing planner and supplier relationships still play an important role with respect to RFPs. Our HB associates love working with our DMO partners, and I know for a fact that many destinations receive leads simply because of how they have worked that relationship with the third party. As a result, they have seen new business opportunities from the invisible customers who we represent. Despite the rise of technology, all customers interviewed in the study said that relationships continue to matter, notably with DMOs, who can help filter and find venues that are the best fit. On the flip side, it was also identified in the study that the reputation of the third party sending the RFP mattered. If most of their leads convert, they will receive better responses from the DMOs and hotels. Historically, DMOs were mandated to broadly distribute RFPs to all of their hotel members, whether it was the right fit or not. That was how you guys were judged by your stakeholders. You showed your relevance through volume. Now, only qualified RFP distribution is a recognized practice by DMAI's accreditation program. In fact, the main role of the DMO as the local expert should be to provide the customer information to help narrow the destination and venue choice. The other challenge is when duplication of the RFP happens, and we've all seen that. The third party sends it, sometimes the hotel brand NSO sends it, and then the third party includes the DMO partner, so they send it out again, just to make sure that they get credit on the lead. The hotel receives the same lead from 3 sources, all for the same program. Visit Orlando led the way to try and stop this duplication. They not only redeployed their sales force and the way they handled third parties, but they also changed the way they viewed credit. When working with third parties, credit was seen as year-over-year growth for that account, not necessarily the number of leads sent. They show their relevance simply by helping to convert the business behind the scenes. I think that more and more DMOs are looking at this model, and some of them have even adopted it. DMAI came out with a paper on DMO recommended practices for managing a C-Vent lead back in December 2014. This map walks you through best practices on how to do that and turns the role of the DMO during the RFP process from one of distributor to one of consultant or advisor, and that is at least when a third party is involved. Some of the best practice recommendations from the GBTA white paper in terms of the overall process are: DMOs should be aware of which hotels have already received the RFP in order to reduce duplication. They should share intel on local demand patterns, citywide dates, and special events before the RFP is even built. And DMOs could take the lead and educate internal and external customers on realistic expectations and needs. It was also suggested that if a DMO added average rates to your destination profile or on your website, this might also avoid receiving RFPs which just aren't a good fit for your destination. So I think it's important to know that you're not in this alone. The white paper's findings said in summary, the best way to improve the eRFP efficiency and effectiveness for all involved clearly involves narrowing the choices prior to issuing a thorough and complete RFP. This will involve deciding on the destination whenever possible prior to issuing an RFP. So this is where your relevance is. Reaching the invisible customer by working your relationships with third parties, truly be the local expert, and advise them before the RFP is even built. At Helms Briscoe, we encourage our associates to reach out to our DMO partners first. We are training associates on what questions they should be asking their customers so that the RFP sent is truly complete and enables the receiver to put together a great bid and not have to go back and forth and back and forth. We've built a robust destination partnership program with more than 150 DMOs in the hopes that we can open doorways to the associates and our customers to encourage strong relationships. We want our associates to feel comfortable picking up the phone and calling their DMO to find out what's happening over the program dates and if they should even bother putting an RFP together for those dates. Working as a collaborative team and discussing things like, aside from the hotels already chosen, are there any other good ones that might be a good fit that should be included in the RFP? Working side by side with the third-party advocate to put the tightest RFP together before it even gets sent. This is how we can still reach the invisible customer. And again, you're not in this alone. We're in this with you. So Edie, any last thoughts to share as we wrap up and open up the floor for some questions?
You know, I would just say you hit on it there, Danielle. Relationships. I mean, we're all in this business because we probably are people, right? We like to connect, we like to add value, we like to share, and ultimately you like to promote the market you live in. Otherwise you wouldn't be doing what you're doing today. And I would just say, well, number one, thank you for doing that. While you can't always get directly to me as that invisible customer, I do know you are providing great information, value, and a service to me indirectly through Helms Briscoe. So thank you for that, and I would just encourage you to keep doing what you're doing. Always provide the information, look for new avenues, new unique things, stay up on trends, and really be that advocate for A, your community, and then B, for our industry as a whole.
Great, perfect, thank you. So Terry, I think I'll turn it over to you if you will. I think we've got about 10 minutes or so if there's any questions perhaps that have come through.
Absolutely. Danielle and Edie, thank you on behalf of DMAI and empowerMINT. We really appreciate you continuing to be part of our DMO education process. I thought it was really informative. It's interesting how it always comes back to communication and trust, right? No matter how long we discuss this, that seems to resonate over and over again. And for the DMOs on the line, I would like to add that, really our role as consultant, our role as helping your HB reps access your destination resources, and then taking it one step further and helping your HB reps access your destination's intellectual capital. There's so many things that are happening in your destinations in terms of innovation and industry clusters and amazing innovation and different ways to tap into not just a generic list of restaurants or entertainment, but tapping into speakers and tapping into all the destination might have to offer in terms of cultural exchange or educational tours or experts that you might have that might be relevant to the business that these organizations are doing in your destination. So, I think we're becoming more sophisticated. We're trying to get to a higher plane all the way around. So Danielle and Edie, we did have some questions, and so first of all, kind of going back again to some of your survey, Amy Moon was interested in asking Danielle if you thought that groups' budgets were staying flat because they're having less meetings, but they're willing to spend more on the meetings they're having, or are they having the same number of meetings and just not responding to the increases that we're seeing across the board?
Yeah, that's a great question, Amy. I think there's probably, we touch so many clients that there's probably a little bit of both, but I do think that it is actually more so, if I was to bet on it, it is more so our customers who are having the same amount of meetings but are just staying flat to the budget from years prior, that they're having the same amount of meetings.
That's what I'm hearing too.
Yeah, and when we had the big recession, a lot of programs cut from 3 nights to 2 nights, or perhaps not as many attendees were invited, and we actually haven't seen that grow back yet, even though, economy overall is good, and I think people are feeling pretty optimistic, except for, here and there, but we just haven't seen, those programs, no one's adding an additional night or inviting additional departments to come. So I think that's the case. Edie, what's happening at Wells Fargo? Do you think that's the case there?
I would say yes and yes. So we are a very market, at least for the home mortgage space, we're very market driven. What I find is we'll put it out there that we potentially are doing the same meeting again, and then and we try to be good stewards of the budget in the first quarter, especially when the housing market is typically slow in the first quarter. But then as things get ramped up and rolling and hopefully a good year, we actually start to see it pick up. So we end up flat, if not up, by the year end, and we usually have a flurry of activity right after the summer, at the end of probably about the start of Q3, moving into Q4 to get those last. We either have some money in the coffers or we need to get a leg up in the market, so we got to bring people together. But then when we do have them, we're held to a tight budget, and once again, do more with less.
Yeah, yeah. And Terry, if I may, one of the things that we're seeing at Helms Briscoe is really an impact because of this, really an impact in terms of the efficiency or the day-to-day time that our associates spend in placing one program for their client. So it may have taken, X amount of hours previously when market conditions were pretty stable and pretty good, whereas now, because clients are saying, sorry, that's all I've got, I am not paying a higher rate, and hotels are digging their heels in because they've got pressure from ownership and so on, and saying that's what the market is demanding, and too bad that that's just what we have to stay with, that they're then having to go back and, even they went really far down the road, having to stop that search and then start all over again because there's just no movement on either side. And so, we're kind of grappling with that internally, just in terms of how do we help our associates still be efficient when it's taking them that much longer to be able to help our clients place their meeting.
I'll also say that the airline industry is not always our friend either. Their rates can jump. So that scenario that Danielle just said, we could maybe price out some flights, and then by the time we get around to booking, they've tripled for God knows why. And now we're backpedaling, we're committed, and we're having to pull back a little bit in different spots.
All right, ladies, we have about 4 more questions, so I'd like to get through them so that we can get answers to everyone. So this is a logistical question, Danielle. For clarification, can a CVB send destination highlight updates and new products to HB? What's the best way to make those communications?
Yeah, absolutely. If they're a DMO partner with us in our destination program, I would suggest several platforms. Being a partner, you've got access to our team, so feel free to just send along. I love Edie's idea of the one-pager, the fact sheet, or the sort of what's new. Send that along to us, and several things then can happen. We would post it to your partner profile, which lives on our HB intranet that all of our associates take a look at and have access to. Or if it's something really cool and really new, we can actually feature that in our Partner Buzz e-newsletter that goes out to all of our associates every other month. So there's a number of ways to share that information, and if you just want to send it to the destination team here at Helms Briscoe, we can get that posted for everybody.
That's great. Danielle, you and Edie both referred to, customized proposals, and yet Mindy in Overland Park was saying, it's hard to create that customer or that customized RFP inside the CVent system. So would you suggest something supplemental being sent, as an attachment or directly to the HB rep when someone wants to do more than just what is available in the RFP platform? What is your suggestion, Danielle, for how they should handle that?
Yeah, and unfortunately, absolutely correct. Some of these technology tools are somewhat restrictive, but you can add attachments to it. And I would say the biggest thing, what our associates do is they take that full RFP, they take the response, and they basically translate that over into a grid, which is what the client sees. So David and his Wells Fargo team here at Helms Briscoe would take the information from CVent, from the RFP, and then it translates over to a grid, and that's what he would show Edie and her team, and that's how they sort of go through piece by piece and determine what is the best fit. You'd be amazed at how many times sections of the RFP are left blank, and so there's a whole blank section when you're being compared to other hotels and other DMOs. But I would say for the DMO community in particular, probably the best thing, add in the, any attachments that you can, or definitely, try, if there's any special offers that your destination is got running or promotions, include that. And then really, and I know this is a touchy subject because some of our associates work very differently and they love to be contacted and some just don't. But, if you really want that piece of business, complete the RFP and then, either send an email or leave a message or call them and say, hey, in addition, this is what we've got. And that way you can kind of customize it. And especially as Edie mentioned, really reading that RFP carefully so that you can understand the highlights and the hot points and the important issues that meeting needs for that client. That's, I think, what we mean by customized, not just sort of a blanket response.
Great. Danielle, Juanita Metzer wants to know, you mentioned the hotels or the DMO's reviews inside your intranet. Do the DMOs have access to what their reviews look like?
Yeah, good question. No, unfortunately, they do not. It's only associates that have access to our HB Insight. However, as a DMO partner with Helms Briscoe through our partnership program, Monica on the destination team actually surfs through that every morning and looks for things, any comments or anything that are related to our partners. And if there's something in there that perhaps isn't really rosy and beautiful and needs perhaps some attention to get corrected, she will reach out to that partner and go, hey, you may just want to know someone had an interesting challenge or situation happen. Maybe you want to reach out and try and get that fixed. Or conversely, will anything that was a rave review, they will share that with them also. So so they don't have direct access, but we do monitor it, and anything that we feel is really important or relevant that they should know about, we will forward that along.
That's great. Danielle, can you forward to the next slide for me?
Oh, sure.
So there have been some questions about follow-up. So next week you will receive an email that has a link to the recording of this webinar, the slide share of Danielle's, and also a certificate for 1 hour CMP credit for Domain A strategic planning. So we really encourage you to check your email probably middle of next week by the time we get the recording rendered and sent out to you. And be sure to check spam as well, because it often ends up there, unfortunately. And then Danielle, just one more forward.
Oh.
And last but not least, we encourage all of you to keep in touch with us, both through empowerMINT website where planners can come to search and find, make sure that all of your empowerMINT information is up to date, because your empowerMINT profile is live inside the HB intranet, so that's important. And also, make sure that you check our blog for relevant planner information as well. So everyone, thank you so much. Danielle, Edie, I thought today, I can tell by the questions that we got, by the interaction, that the session was well received, and really, really appreciate, Danielle, you spending your time and asking your good customer, Edie, to join us and give us a little bit more insight about how we can all get together to create, as Edie said, we're all after the same goal, right? We're all trying to create the best meeting possible, and I think if we keep communication open, that's certainly possible, and that the DMO plays a huge role in that relevancy. So thank you, everybody. Danielle, you were worried about going over, and we are just right under the time, so we're terrific.
Right on. Well, thank you so much, Terry, and thanks everybody for joining us today. And Edie, as always, you were so bang on and wonderful. Thank you.
Have a great afternoon, everyone.
All right, everybody, have a great day.